This is episode 184 of the Double Crossed Anime Podcast. I'm Whooper, and here's Mario.
Hello, everyone.
This time we're talking about spring anime. Mario and I, before hitting the record button, we were just talking about different seasons and why every season in Australia is just pain to live through. But when it comes to anime, that you could any kind of anime could air in any given season, you know. And
Yeah,
in the spring season, we had a pretty wide variety of shows. I think, originals, comedies, sci-fi, and the list goes on. Those are the three that are jumping in my head, I guess. Um, as for the three shows that we're going to be talking about, they are Apocalypse Hotel, Kowloon Generic Romance, and Lazarus. Originally, we were going to discuss Mobile Suit Gundam G-Quux, but I said, nope, not doing that, because the longer the show went on, the more frustrated I got with it. Subbed in Apocalypse
all
Hotel
right,
real quick, and that ended up being one of my favorite shows of the season. Not to spoil anything.
right, all right. Yep. Even that we got a wide variety, but the three shows that we decided to cover here are all sci-fi, are all set in the futures.
That's true. Apocalypse Hotel is set. Well, is Kowloon Generic Romance set in the future?
I would say so. Like they really have like all the sci-fi elements of like the second column and the thing that hanging over the cities.
Generic Terra.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a sci-fi show. I just don't remember there being any indication in the text of the show itself that it was happening
Right.
like beyond 2025. But I guess it must be, right? If they have the technology to simulate an entire city based on the memory of one man.
Mm.
More spoilers. Apocalypse Hotel is set very far in the future.
Yep.
In
Yep.
fact, I rewatched its first episode before we sat down to talk about it. The first
Mm.
day of the show is April 12th, 2157, and like 600 years pass between episode 1 and episode 12.
Yep. Yep.
So definitely very far in the future, closer to the year 3000 than the year 2025.
Oh, we can talk about that show if you want.
Apocalypse Hotel,
Yep, let's do that.
should we?
Yeah,
All right.
why not?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. Why not? Might as well. It's first alphabetically too. Um, yeah, this is. I mean, it's an original anime, and it's one that took me by surprise. I kind of had like middling expectations for it. I think before the season started, but it ended up like pleasantly surprising me. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, well, I have no expectation on that at all. Being, like it's just one of these show that flow under the radar. Even that we didn't really cover it for the first, when we do the first impression.
Right.
I watched the first episode. I really enjoy it. Like, it have all the elements I like. I like the post-apocalyptic world, how they depict that. I like the way that like this is one hotel that keep ev- keep all the function running, even though they have no humanity left. And then the first guest that they got is the alien, so
Right.
it have a really good sense of humor to it as well. So it took me by surprise, and I'm glad that that we decided to cover it.
I kind of thought that you might enjoy it because it reminded me of a particular series that I know you really love. Can you guess what it
All right.
is?
Humanity has declined.
That's exactly it. Yes.
Right. Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, in
Yep.
this show, humanity literally has declined,
Yep.
or rather, they've ascended, into space. But then you find out that um, they're dead. Not
Right.
all of them. As we learn in the final episode, when a human finally comes to stay at the Gingoro Hotel. But when the Tanuki family arrives in episode 3, maybe,
Yeah.
you see a flashback to them discovering a bunch of corpses aboard, a space station where humanity has
Mhm.
been taking refuge. So you assume at that point, okay, humanity is completely wiped, um, and they may as well have been for the majority of the show, but they turns out we survived, which we learn at the very end.
Mhm. Yeah, that's correct. It's not very consistent for me. The shows, like some episodes, I feel is a bit, more like, all right. I'm glad they went there, but I'm not sure how I feel about that. But most of the time, the episodes are also pretty good.
When
So
you talk about
yeah.
inconsistency, are you perhaps referring to episodes like 6, where the cat kangaroo warrior comes to
Hmm.
Earth and he's like he gets into a huge fight with like a team of superheroes because they think that they want revenge on him for destroying their planet.
Yep. No, I actually enjoyed that episode.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Can you
The
think of
one
one
that
that you didn't like so much?
the one that I was thinking about was two of them actually. So one of them is when Yatio she came back after she being like excluded, like just become an orbit, go in uh in the world, like just orbit, go around the earth. When she get back, she find that she had no purpose whatsoever, so she become a delinquent,
Right.
and she changed her design as well, and it it just so come off the left field that oh my god, I just all right, the so went there.
Yeah, she gets into a big mecha battle with Ponko, from what I
Yeah,
remember.
yeah, yeah. And the second thing is, I actually feel that the Tanduki alien family, when they arrive, I like the concept. I don't think they add that much to the story. I
You
I
don't
think
like
it
the
just feel,
Tanuki family?
yeah, I just feel that they sometimes at odds with the shows. Like they just feel like like the hotel is their home stuff, so they doing a lot of crazy things that make Yachio just like be mad. I actually feel that the episode 3, when they arrive, is the wicked ones out of the 12
Interesting.
for me. Yeah,
Okay. That's the one where they're like making shit piles
yeah,
because
yeah, yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
how they like mark their territory and set up their nests and their home and everything. Yeah, that I mean that was definitely it's the concept is gross, but I really like I like the Tanuki
The
family.
family. All
Yeah,
right.
I like the fact that the dad is, he's like kind of a bumbling fool, but he's also really good natured, and that the mom is like so glamorous, but also supports her family, and that the son grows up to be like a struggling artist. I thought that was really. There was a particular episode. I can't which one was it. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but there are like cutaways to him
uh,
making something in his workshop, and you think that it has to do with the main plot of like somebody who's making
yep,
a bomb.
yep.
That was really
I think
that weird.
yeah, I think it's the episode right where uh Yachio just got back from Earth, because it's been a while. It's yeah, yeah. I think that's episodes because I think she been away for like 60 years. I don't know why I get that number, but I think she be away for that long, and that's when like the him growing up.
Hmm. You might be right. I don't know. If I scroll through my notes long enough, I'll figure it out. But
Yeah.
it's hard to spot the information I'm looking for with all this text in front of me.
And I remember the episode before that was the episode where they decided to do the satellites, and that's where Ponko had growing up. And I remember seeing the little brother. He hasn't. like grow up that much. We still see him in the the young version of himself.
Okay.
So it's kind of a nice surprise as well to see. We didn't know that person until we find out who that is.
Um, yeah, so the scene where Yachio gets stranded in space, I was really impressed with that one, like with the cliffhanger.
Hmm.
Um, Not knowing, given that the show is very loose with time and that it skips like 50 or 100 years between episodes or even in the middle of an episode, um, since the apocalypse has happened, so time is a little more fluid, I guess. There aren't as many
Hmm.
people keeping track of it, you know, uh, setting their lives by it. Um, so given that the show takes that approach to its timeline, you don't know how long she's going to be stuck up there for. And when
Yep.
episode 8 opens, um, if I remember correctly, it opens like with her not at the hotel anymore, and Ponko is running it, and there's
Yep.
not an immediate indication of when Yachio will return. And in fact,
Yep.
it's not as though she's rescued by the Tanukis or anybody else on Earth. I think she hitches a ride on some piece of debris or
Yep.
something and like
Yep. Yep.
comes
Yep.
back through Earth's atmosphere, shielding herself with that big piece of debris.
Yep. That's correct.
It's just
And
it's a very, wild uh, method of reuniting the main character with all the other characters.
I agree, and I feel like after it finished with a cliffhanger, the episode I started just like normal. Like we have like the same routines of like the morning routine, but this time it's from Poco, who is the uh oh my god, the
The acting manager,
acting. Yeah, that's right. Three actings.
right? Because Yachio is two
And
actings.
yeah, and yeah, and we know that Yachio was still wasn't there anymore, and they keep the business open, and I think it's even more thriving
Right. Yeah,
than
when Yachio, that's
than
part of
before.
why Yachio, I guess, that's part of her motivation for going full delinquent mode is that when she
Yep.
returns, I mean, not only is she outfitted with parts that like, makes her own body unfamiliar to her, but she sees that the hotel is doing better than ever in her absence. So that, creates resentment in her towards Ponko, who's been the one to keep it going.
Yep.
Even though that episode is very silly, I thought that both the sixth episode with the cat kangaroo superhero Sentai
Right.
battle and episode 8 with the mecha battle with Ponko, I thought both of them were like just kind of uh, genre exercises. Like the show just
Hmm.
wanted to do a little bit of spoofing.
Yep.
Um, despite that kind of being an obvious satirical detour, I did think that
Hmm.
there was like a good motivation for Yachio to be angry with Ponko. I don't know if the form that anger took, like the result of it, made a lot of sense, but
Hmm.
uh, it's
Yep.
certainly an
Well,
interesting test of their relationship because they do have the strongest relationship of any two characters in the show.
I agree, but I'm not sure if Yachiro is anger at Poko in particular or just at herself for for not fulfilling, because she had forever been a hoteler robot. So it's more like now she doesn't fulfill that job anymore. She feel more like angry at herself.
Hmm. Perhaps I thought that she just like resented a lot of the changes that Ponko had made, um,
Yeah.
and the fact that she wasn't part of the hotel's most prosperous era probably
Hmm.
made her resentful.
Yeah.
But perhaps you take that resentment and you direct it outwards at somebody else to like keep yourself from acknowledging your own failures. Maybe
Yeah.
subconsciously she was
Yeah.
angry at herself.
Yeah. and even before that we get a lot of things happening as well. So we have like we see them doing the the sake, or like making the wine, and it took
Right.
them like a few hundred years as well to do
Right.
that.
Yeah, and the
And
the Tanuki dad, I think, is a key part of that process, if I remember correctly. Like he goes off on an expedition to get something or other that they need.
well, not only him, I think like other little, like the chat they make, every single one of the members have to go to different location to get the ingredient.
Hmm.
So all of them actually contributed to that.
I see.
Oh, and then him go into uh go in with the environmental checker. I don't know what his name is.
Yeah, the
To
environmental monitor bot, something like that.
Yeah, I love
I
him.
really liked him.
Yeah. Oh, when he give the result to the human, and then he just say like, my job is now done.
Yeah. In episode
Oh,
12,
so
you
good.
mean?
Yeah, the last one. Yeah,
Yeah,
so good.
the fact that he was so trigger happy made him very funny. Like he
Yeah.
was really eager to bust out that massive gun that he had tucked away inside of his shell.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You would figure that this being a show called Apocalypse Hotel, like in the apocalypse, there's going to be mutated wildlife and just plenty of opportunities to use a massive laser gun. But nope.
I think
Th-
he used it once or twice, and the the time that he used
Maybe
it,
in episode
it didn't
4
really work.
with the noodle.
Like remember the worm
I say noodle, but it's
monster
spelled differently. It's that
who
massive
appeared.
sandworm in the desert.
Yeah, so it definitely didn't, right? Anyway, yeah, when he tried to attack him with his weapon, it didn't work.
Yeah. That's just good comedy right there. You build up
Right.
the expectation that his super massive weapon is going to be like deliver a critical hit, and then it just does nothing.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Oh boy.
But I mean, I would consider the show to be a comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of comedy, but I feel part of what makes the show really interesting to me is that there is a like an undercurrent of like existentialism and like
Right. Mm-hmm.
reflection and sadness
Yep.
to it. Even though it's the show is always cracking jokes and designing entire episodes plots around weird misunderstandings. Um, like episode 4, for example, that same episode where they go to the desert and Ponko, I think, ends up being the one to destroy the noodle, if I remember correctly. Like she gets to the top of a particular building where there's controls for a
Yep.
crane, and they use the crane to
Mm-hmm.
slam
Yep.
like a
Yep.
big
Yep.
beam into the noodle, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in that same episode, like as they're going to the desert, Yachio gives Ponko a walkie-talkie so they can communicate with one another.
Right.
Yachio tells her that, like Ponko doesn't know what it is, so Yachio says, "Oh, this is something that lets you talk with people who are far away." The first thing
Yep.
that Ponko does with the walkie-talkie is she tries to use it to talk to her dead grandpa in heaven
Yep.
because she
And
wants to talk to someone
yeah.
who's far away, and that's
Yep.
who comes to mind
Yep.
in her brain.
Yep.
There's and there's also the talk from the door opening robot in the first episode
Hmm.
about how without even though him opening the door multiple times a day doesn't serve any purpose because there are no guests, and in fact it causes him to overheat, which is why he needs the shampoo hat that sends Yachio into like a crazed fit in the very first episode. He explains that that's his purpose. So he even if there's no like immediate accomplishment, he still feels the need to do it, and that's sad. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's silly, but if you really think about it, that's sad. He knows that the role that he was built to fulfill um, has no purpose in this future, but he still feels the need to do it.
Yeah, that's correct. I actually forgot to mention you another episodes that I feel really weird as well. It's the one that they have a a dead customers. So there are two guys who look alike. So one of them is Quickly Squad or something, and the other one is the guy who tracked him down, and one of them is dying because of I have no idea. Yeah, the other guy name is Slurp PT Slurp, uh,
This is episode
and
10, I remember.
yeah, yeah, and they decided to just hide the body.
Right.
Just so weird. It had
Yeah.
to be
That
one
was
of the
one of my least
weirdest episodes.
favorites.
I agree. Well, yep.
I actually think that that episode 10 is the one where you see Ponko's brother who's grown up and is like
All
an
right. Yep. Yep.
artist
Yep. Yep.
now.
Yep. Yep. Mm.
Cuz there's a question about like how the earth is going to be destroyed. That's what the that's
Yep.
this guy who comes to the hotel, that's what he says he's there for, like to stop the crazed serial bomber who he
Yep.
thinks is hiding on earth. And the show kind of gives you a red herring of Ponko's brother making something in his workshop and you don't know what it is. At least
Yep.
I think that's how it went. It's a little harder than I mean my memory is not very good in general, but it's a little harder for me to remember details for
Yep.
this particular group of episodes because I watched them all as they came out,
Mm.
which is not something I typically do. Usually I wait until it's almost time for the podcast and then I like burn through it really quick so it's fresh in my memory. But this time I was writing a little bit about
Well,
these shows as they were airing on
all right.
a
So
bi-weekly basis. So even
I
an episode like number 10 for Apocalypse Hotel is for me almost I don't know, like 3 weeks, almost a month in the past.
mhm. Yep. I would say that's there's a lot of red herring in this episode, so that's why we got a bit confused. So remember that the first guy Slurp PT Slurp, he have like a candy, two candies inside him. One of them is for the bomb, and one of them is real candy. So I think what happened was he gave Poco's Poco daughter a real candy, and then actually he died because the other candy just blow up. So I think that's why he died. The fact that like later on in the episode we see Poco daughter just located one of his other candy and eating doesn't really amount to anything.
I
And
remember that there were, in addition to the detective having like the twin who was the bomber, not actually his twin, but they looked identical. I remember that there were also candies that looked identical, and that
yeah,
Tamako, who's Ponko and Ponstein's daughter,
daughter, yeah,
yeah, she really wanted the candy. I remember that, but that's about all I
yeah,
got.
yeah,
I one thing I do remember about that episode is that some of Ponko's dialogue leads her husband to think that she's cheated on him.
right,
That was
right,
very weird. The show is just
yeah,
weird in general.
yeah,
I mean, it had freedom to be weird because it's an anime original, so they
yeah,
could take some strange detours, um, and do whatever they wanted for a handful of episodes, and just let
yeah,
hundreds and hundreds of years pass in the background.
yeah.
Um,
Well,
but there were,
if all right, if episode 10 is the worst one out of the whole bunch, I think this show is pretty good. You know, like even episode 10, it's widely inconsistent, but it's still, like offers something very different. And it
yeah,
still add up to the whole experience. So,
there's a little bit of a horror vibe to it in some places.
yeah. And pop feeling as well.
Yeah,
So
there's even that scene where they go into the theater room and a bunch of aliens are in there watching an old
right.
horror film from Earth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
For
I think
study.
that was probably the show's way of acknowledging that, hey, we're doing an homage episode this week. Don't
Right.
worry, we'll be back to normal, whatever normal is. Uh, And then yeah, episode 11, which came right after this one, was I guess back to normal, sort of. It was certainly more grounded. It was definitely the quietest episode. There was
Yep.
very little dialogue. That was
I
the one where Yachio went out and explored, the
be
Ginza, just the surrounding area.
all right. Before we get into that episode, though, can I just ask you which episode that you prefer? Do you like the most?
And it honestly might be episode 11.
Right. I feel the same, and they have a few competitors as well. I really like the episode 9
Me too.
where the grandma die
Hmm.
at the wedding, and episode 12 as well. It actually, like they ended in the most perfect way they they could. So, but nothing beat episode 11 for me.
Yeah, it is really like Yachio is dealing with her own mortality,
Yeah.
um, because there's a part, like a crucial part of her system, I guess, that is failing, and she doesn't know how she's gonna secure a new one. And she
Hmm.
ends up finding, a robot, a similar model to her, or perhaps an identical model. I can't really picture the scene. Is the robot that she finds in that
Yes.
building, is it exactly the same as she is?
It look kind of the same. I think that it have a different face, but it's kind of the same models, like the way it designed.
Okay. Yeah, because in flashbacks, many of the flashbacks that you see, especially in the earlier parts of the show, from Yachio's memory, are of like the hotel's manager talking to a bunch of robots,
Yep. Hmm.
the staff of the hotel, and it's not just Yachio who's a humanoid robot. There are many other, like male humanoid and female humanoid robots with different, hairstyles and everything.
Right.
So it stands to reason that she would be able to find a part from another robot like her. Um,
Yep.
but the way that she takes it is so, like, I don't know. It's very, um, somber. Like she's giving
Hmm.
thanks, to this her her fallen sister, I guess,
Yep.
um, someone who didn't survive the apocalypse.
Yep.
And
I
there are hints of
f-
that
I
elsewhere in the show too. I mean, there's like the robot
I agree.
graveyard, where all of
Yep.
the former staff members of the Gingado Hotel, who have like been decommissioned or run out of energy or been destroyed, are all
Yep.
kept like in one place as like a mass
Yep.
grave.
Yep.
I think
I
Yachio goes
agree.
and visits that mass grave in episode 11, if I'm not mistaken, to see if she can find a part
Yep.
that matches,
Yep.
um, the one she needs.
Yep. 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 That's correct. I just feel a bit weird that he didn't really bring that model back to that graveyard, just because there's might be more park that he need in the future. But it kind of makes sense as well, because I think that model is not the part of you know the uh, the original team.
Was it not
So
wearing like a hotel uniform?
I think they serve the same purpose, but they're not exactly for that hotel.
Okay.
That's my take.
Yeah. Like they're just like a service robot in general.
Yep, yep, yep. Maybe another like hotelier robot, but not for this particular hotel.
Hmm. Yeah, I did think that episode was excellent.
Yeah, and like you said, there's just not a lot of conversation, but it also about her, like doing something that's not her own. So she had 2 day off, and she doesn't really know what to do, because her whole life had been, like to serve. So it's just for her to find purpose in life, and to just like reflect, and for her to see the world as well beyond that. So she try on new clothes. She try on. She go a lot of other places.
Yeah,
It
she
just
visits a
yeah. It
shrine. She goes to a pachinko parlor, which is still
yeah,
operational.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, all of that is pretty somber. But then she came back, and she said like, "Yep, I feel alive, and I'm ready to get back to work."
Yeah.
So good.
I think that
Just
episode is about her like discovering her humanity
I agree. Yes.
and feeling like a part of nature and of the earth more broadly.
Yeah.
You know, not
Hmm.
her kind of figuring out that she's not just a bunch of parts, one of which needs to be replaced. She's part of
Yep.
something much much bigger. Even with humanity gone, she like is a part of this planet. Because there's a lot of shots of her, you know, in nature with animals around her, especially like the campfire that she sets up kind of at the base of a big tree. Um,
Hmm.
a bunch of animals come and are like warmed by the fire, if I remember correctly.
Yep. 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 Yep.
Um, and it that's she's very like high strung, you know, her even
Mm.
though she puts on a good face for the guests, she like has a perfect script that she follows when a new guest comes to the hotel. Um, she's still very tense. That's kind of her personality. Like a missing shampoo hat can cause her to melt down.
Yep.
Um, episode 11 was an opportunity for her to kind of deprogram herself
Yep.
and
Well,
become her own person.
I think exactly because of that quality that she keep the hotel still running for like few hundred episodes. Sorry, few hundred years after the humanity left. So good on her, you know.
Yep, she fulfilled her mission. And then
Yep.
she discovered, I think, that it was beyond that. It was something that she wanted to do because um, it was her it was her passion.
Hmm.
Ponko says to her in episode like when a human finally returns to Earth in episode 12, and um, she's not like she thinks that something is wrong with her, that she's malfunctioning because she's not like her emotional program is not
Hmm.
responding to the return of
Yep.
humanity. And Ponko points out to her, well, that's because you know, having done this for hundreds of years, you now value all guests equally, whether they're
Yep.
human or not.
Right. I love that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I love the fact that oh my god, I would say that everything happened in the last episode that I enjoyed. Like the fact that the human now had changed, that they're not compatible to the earth anymore. I
Yeah.
just feel that it's great. We learn about their condition in the ship, where you know like it's more like, oh, she wondering about, you know, like all the water you don't need to share, all the food that, you know, see, this is like very tasty food. See all of that, and then she left with a promise that she come back, and that tick yet you off as well.
Yeah.
Oh, I love all that.
It's a very strange ending. I mean, there's the final
It's a
scene where
perfect
she
ending.
unlocks the ability to whistle.
Yep. Yep.
You know, throughout the show in a bunch of different episodes, she completes extra missions, and the little robot
Yep.
voice comes on saying, "Extra mission complete."
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Um,
Yep. Say stupid to the guests.
yeah, so it's not the final scene of the show because there is like a post credits um, like zoom out, I guess. You get to see a bunch
Yep.
of what the characters are doing on Earth at the hotel and everything, and then there's the final shot is a zoom out of Earth with a bunch of like banners, holographic banners circling around it as
Yep.
advertisements for the hotel, which I think they probably put up in episode 7.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yep.
Um, but even though it's not the final, even though the whistle scene is not the absolute last shot of the show as a whole, it still, you know, leads you into the end credits, and it's just such a little throwaway kind of quirky moment.
Yep.
You know, the show is just always defying your expectations and being its weird
Yep.
kind of
Yep.
strange self.
I love that. I love that ending. It just, you know, see, I think she obtained something that, you know, no other robot can. You know, you imagine a a robot who can whistle? So, you know, it it's actually a very perfect ending for me.
Hmm. Interesting. So
I
are
love
you
it.
saying that it kind of indicates that she's more than machine?
More human now? Yep, seem more human now for sure.
Okay, like a whistling is kind of like a soulful um, action,
Yeah, yeah.
and she unlocks it by
I feel
calling
that way.
humanity stupid.
Yeah, and now she have maybe the ironic is maybe she go back to the very beginning where she have to operate the hotel and still waiting for them to go back.
Yeah, I didn't
And
even think about
and it
that. It is kind of cyclical in that way.
Yeah, and it take her like how many years for them to return? You know, like the very thing that she keep hanging there was, you know, like the promise that they'll be back, and throughout the whole episode, the whole run of the series, we she find out that, you know, like she enjoy to serve the alien as much as the human. She found that the human when they back is not, you know, like the one that she was expecting, because, you know, like that the new human refused to wear a shampoo hat,
Right.
and all the things in between that she learned, and now, you know, like just a promise that might bring her back to, you know, like to to start. So I think it's just irony in a way,
Yeah.
and the visual is just like kind of, you know, like the ironic thing that she can do in that situation. It just it for me it just feel perfect for me, the
Hmm.
way they decided to end it like that.
Nice. Yeah, it is. It is a kind of an ironic final episode. What Yachio had wanted all along, she gets, and then she realizes it isn't. It isn't everything that she thought it would be. Even Tomari, the human who comes back to Earth, she finally makes it back to her home planet, to her species' home planet, and humanity can no longer survive there. So she
Yeah,
discovers that the return to humanity's home is not what she thought it was. Bunch of characters getting reality checks, I guess,
yeah,
finding out
yeah,
that the thing they wanted all along wasn't what they needed, perhaps.
yeah. And actually, I you mentioned that, but I also really enjoyed the kangaroo fighter in episode 6. I actually was waiting for him to come back.
Does he promise that he will come back?
He promised that he will see her back. Yeah, he will come back to the hotel someday. Yes.
Hmm. Well, I mean, Yachio's going to continue. She's going to keep the hotel open, and now that the
Yep.
Tanuki family has like made it kind of, they're keeping it
Yep.
in the family, because by
Yep.
the final episode, Tamako, Ponko's daughter, has reached the same age that Ponko was when they first crash landed on Earth, or I guess they landed on Earth on purpose because they were looking for a planet that could sustain them
Yep. Yep.
after
Yep.
war
Yep.
forced
That.
them off of their original planet.
Yep. That's true.
Um,
How did they pay for their stay in the hotel? I don't know. Maybe
with Ponko's
Poco.
labor.
Yep, that makes sense. She's spending her whole life there, so yes.
Yeah, and now Tamako is going to work there as well. So the hotel is, they've got generations of future workers. I think in the final episode, don't we see that Ponko and Ponstein have had a second child?
All right.
I think.
I don't recall that, but that's possible.
Okay, maybe I'm imagining that. Um, I mean, if you that would make it even more cyclical, I guess, because Ponko's
Yeah,
parents also had two children, an older girl and a younger boy. So if she were to
yeah,
do the
yeah,
same, that would make it more of a loop,
yeah.
and
All
then the
right.
hotel would have
You
more workers to carry it on to the next generation. I mean,
all right.
generation. We think of a generation as being like 25 years or 30 years or so. For for the Tanuki family, it's like 500 years.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's true. And I think they play around with the concept of years and age very well as well.
Yeah,
See,
yeah,
no
from the
one
from the
seem
very
to
beginning.
age. Yeah, yeah. Alrighty. You have any other note on this one before we get into the other shows?
Oh, we can move on.
All right. Yeah.
Ready?
Um, let's go with Lazarus.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Uh, so I was bracing myself for this.
Right.
I've uh,
Impressing yourself.
I think that in terms of Shinichiro Watanabe works, there are like two categories. There's the ones where um, there's it's more focused on a set of characters, like three or four characters who get into a whole bunch of different kinds of adventures, um, while they're traveling together, whether it be through space or across, Edo period Japan or whatever. And then there's his other works where they try to tell a much bigger story and usually end up flopping.
Yeah.
And I think
This
this
is the
one,
second.
yeah, this is definitely the second category.
All right. I would say that for me, if this show would fit more into a movies because they have a really clear set of like of the event they expect to happen. So like everything happened for 30 days. They have to find Skinner, or the humanity will end. And like they try to explode some of the characters, the bad characters, motivation and their characters along the way. So I think I like the concept. Uh, the execution is a bit, I would say underwhelming for me.
Yeah.
I I s- I still think, I still say that I enjoy what I watch, but yeah, just feel like yeah, a lot of things happen just for the sake of happening.
I guess. I mean, they do because they're always having those like briefing scenes at their home base with everyone gathered around that table looking up at that screen, and their boss, the woman who used to know Lazarus during or the woman who used to know
Yep,
Skinner during their time as scientists, I think her name was Hirsch. She's always like
yep,
leading those meetings and being like, "Okay, Alpha team, you go to this place. Uh, Bronco team, you go over here. We're gonna try to catch, find a lead on Skinner and bring him to justice and make him create a vaccine for this virus or this drug.
yep,
Break, and then everybody goes on their little mission. So
yep.
everything that happens seems to be for a reason, but I don't know. Just the tone of the show is doesn't seem to match its premise. Like if the world is going to end in
And that
30 days, why
I
why are so many characters just going about their lives as normal?
yeah, I agree. One of that, yeah, I agree that like if the world is ending in 30 days, there is no sense of urgency at all. Like I don't feel any threat from them that like they gonna be dying, you know. So you don't get the sense of the urgency. I think you kind of get the sense of urgency just because you get a reminder every time that it's 17 days, it's 15 days before the end of the world. But the real implication on that you don't really feel, especially out of these main characters who instead of finding Skinner, they do all other extra missions.
Well, all of those missions are
Um,
tied to trying to find Skinner.
uh,
There's always some explanation of how it's going to help them find him. Like they have to go to a place where he lived 2 years ago, or they have to track down somebody who knew him at the lab where he
mm,
used to work when he was younger, or whatever.
yeah. And then there is a reveal, right? I think a few episodes, like one or two episodes before the ending, where like there was a terrorist cover up. So it's cover up as a terrorist, but in truth, it because Skinner just trying to get the uh the
Hapana.
luggage, the happiness to other countries, and he got ambushed, and the happiness just leaked out, and everyone, including the main characters, was there. So they kind of get immune to this to that, and I was like, they never mentioned that before, right?
No. I mean, you do know that Chris, the former
Right,
Russian spy,
right,
you know that she was
yep,
there because as part of her
yep,
backstory in episode 8, they reveal that she was involved in like an airport incident. At that
yep,
point in time, you don't know yet that the airport incident is like
yep,
Skinner was there and he was smuggling a version of Hapna out of the lab or whatever because he wanted to reveal the fact that the U.S. Army was trying to weaponize it,
yep,
was doing like
yep, yep,
was trying to make a bio weapon out of it or something.
yep,
Um, yeah, but you know,
yeah,
I think at that you can put the pieces together even before that point that she was exposed to it, and you
right,
also know that the U.S. Army is trying to kill Axel, the main male
yep,
character, I guess you could call him, because he
yep,
was part of like uh, when he was in prison in Arizona, trials were run on some inmates there and like to test Hapna.
yep,
So he like his blood might carry like the cure. That's what that's why they send the assassin after him, like the Chinese assassin who figures heavily into the last few episodes. The U.S. Army tries to get him to kill Axel because they're worried that he has the cure for the virus. But I don't
yep.
what I don't really understand is like why why they want why they want to stop Lazarus from figuring out where Skinner is. Like obviously if Skinner
Hmm.
is found, he can testify against INSCOM, the US Army.
Yep,
But if they don't find Skinner, everybody's going to die.
yep.
Like why are
That's
they
make no
trying to usher in the end of humanity? I don't understand that.
and they try to sabotage the plan as well by killing Essos, like one of the main guys in the Lazarus, and you know, and that and that guy who just kind of like kill everyone as well. Oh my god, I
Who are you
yeah,
when you say that guy, are you talking about the assassin?
no, I'm not talking about the assassin. I'm not talking the guy who hiring that assassins.
Oh yeah,
Um,
his name was what was his name?
all right, I'm
So the
looking
head
it
of
up.
Lazarus was named Abel or Abel. He was the
Yeah,
bald guy with
no,
glasses, who was
yeah,
Hirsch's boss.
right.
The head of INSCOM, or that maybe the NSA. I don't remember exactly. His name, I think it started with an S, right?
Yeah. Uh,
Am I smoking
uh,
crack? Am I smoking Hapna right now?
the I think you were right, but I don't have his name in here.
Yeah,
In
I'm
the
scrolling through pages and pages of stuff that I wrote.
all right, and
Whatever.
so weird. Yeah, so weird that they in my anime list they have like the name of the police officer or loan shark B, and they don't have the name of that characters.
Yeah, they probably stopped updating the character list after a certain point, and he only started factoring in episode 9, maybe.
Yeah, well,
Because episode 9,
uh,
oh, I mean, speaking of like having issues with the show, but still kind of enjoying it. Episode 9
mhm,
was crazy, dude. The last few minutes where Soryu, the assassin, goes
yeah,
to that like abandoned housing project in Queens, New York,
right.
and like slaughters all those black ops, like American black ops agents
Oh, yep, 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 yep,
was
yep.
one of the craziest action scenes I've ever seen in a TV anime. It
Right.
was unbelievable.
They have a lot of that. Even like the first episodes, we got like the chase, or you know like some really random action scenes in between. They all look amazing.
Yeah. In episode 4, which is the one where they go to the club and Leland
Right,
dresses
right.
as a woman.
Yep, yep,
Um,
yep,
the helicopter chase scene in the third act of that episode was just
yep,
like, what am I watching? this is
yep,
this is crazy. This makes no sense, but it's so awesome.
yep. And even the assassins himself, like I think he got a really good concept, but it still doesn't make sense. Like he have multiple personality disorder. Why you make him that? Why don't just make him, like he tried to cover himself up by pretending to be an assassin and an agent as well.
He does do that. That's why he presents himself as like both HQ, who is
Yeah,
the middleman, and
yeah,
Soryu, who is the assassin. He
yeah.
does
But
that.
they explain, yeah, but they explain he does that because he have multiple identity disorder, not because
Right. Yeah, that's I mean,
he.
I kind of interpreted it as that was his cover, which he was doing like in his right mind, but also his his like sense of self was fracturing, kind of separate to that or like subtly contributing to it. I don't know.
Hmm,
Um,
well,
yeah, I
well,
mean
yeah,
the just the fact that it takes them so long to put that together after we in the audience have known for several episodes
true.
that he HQ and Soryu are the same person kind of
Yeah,
takes some of the wind out of that plot line, I guess.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree.
You know what it reminded me of is Vincent from the Cowboy Bebop movie.
Right, right. Hmm.
He's the villain who is trying to like poison the water supply,
Yeah.
um, and you know the of course the Cowboy Bebop the Bebop gang has to try to stop him, like get the bounty on his head or whatever. But Vincent in that movie was like out of his mind. He was a soldier in the Titan War, and as a result of like his service, he like his brain was broken, and that's why that was what motivated him, I guess, in that
Hmm.
film. So I think, I mean, Watanabe definitely has his fixations. He likes telling stories about people who, even in like the episode of Cowboy Bebop, Perot Le Fou, with the floating guy with the top hat and the evil laugh, whose cane is a gun, and he tries to assassinate Spike. He likes depicting like craziness that is born out of like trauma and brainwashing. That's something that he
Hmm.
enjoys doing. And also, well, actually, I had another example and it just flew out of my head completely. I don't
All
remember what I
right.
was going to say.
Uh,
Oh well.
that's all right. Can I ask you a question? Because I kind of a bit confused as well. The president of the United States in this show, are they two persons? Because I think at the beginning we have like some kind of a man as a president, and then later on when Abel asked for permission, it was a lady.
I don't remember anything about the depiction of the president from early on,
Right.
so I couldn't tell
Mhm.
you. The only president I remember is the scene where Abel's like, he he just he just drives up to the
Go
White
straight.
House like, "Hey,
Yeah.
hey, Madam President, what's going on? I need your help."
Yeah. I got two requests.
Yeah, yeah, that was
Okay.
just a one in a long line of things that were completely implausible about this
Yeah.
show. Uh,
And even Skinner, like the way that he do it, but everyone find out that he's really good at that. He, like he have uh oh, and that lead me to another thing as well because one of the hacker who tried to protect him,
Popcorn
uh
Wizard.
popcorn wizards who always say Lichi, who always say what.
Yaru!
Oh, yeah, what yes, he has. Yes, she says some really funny things. Anyways, they try to protect him because they all have the one of the symptoms where they cannot feel pain,
Right.
and that skin protect him from that, and that skin I think take the idea of the drug. Because of that, I have no, I still cannot link the all of these.
I
I
don't
it
remember whether Hapno was like whether he was inspired by it's I can't remember what is the name of their condition. It's like synthetic analgesia or something along those
they
lines.
mentioned that they mentioned that a few times, but
Yeah,
all I
that's the
remember is
condition
that
where you
they
can't
cannot feel the
feel
pain.
pain. I don't know if he like took a sample of their blood or something to use in the development of Hapna or whatever.
Right.
But the reason why they're so loyal to him, why Popcorn Wizard and other people who live in that area, those areas, like the Maldives, for example, those islands, that
Yep.
like the different members of Lazarus go to different underwater um, like population centers in episode
Right.
7 where they all go on like weird scuba missions and stuff. I thought that episode was really pretty looking, like all the like swimming and diving that they do and stuff. Anyway,
Hmm.
the reason why Popcorn Wizard and other people from the same parts of the world as she is, why they're so loyal to Skinner is because he purchases all of the land in those areas before they go underwater due to global warming.
Right.
And
Right.
so all the like he buys up all that property, and so their communities are like flush with
Safe.
cash. They just get millions and millions of dollars from Skinner, and as a result, they're able to relocate themselves to other parts of the world before their homes are flooded. That's why they're loyal to him, and that's why
I see.
Popcorn Wizard is loyal to him.
All right. I have other questions.
Okay.
So, you know the terrorists that leaking all of these the stuff, and the five of them are in there. So it implying that because they already been exposed to that, they kind of immune to the effect of the drug,
Yeah,
right?
I think so.
Uh, was Skinner there as well? So why didn't he have that?
Why wasn't he immune?
Yep.
Yeah, that is. I definitely remember the show explaining that at some point. I couldn't really tell you, but
All right.
I remember the show like went out of its way to be like, oh, by the way, he's still gonna die from the drug, and here's why. They just tossed a couple lines in there.
Oh my God.
I don't know. I think maybe it's because he was so close to the suitcase when it got shot and the pressurized gas escaped from the suitcase. He was right there. He was like patient zero basically.
Right.
Um,
Huh.
he
But
was
uh,
exposed to it so like to such an extreme degree, I guess. That's why. And he
all right.
also didn't seek to cure himself. When they find him in the
Yeah.
homeless encampment in the final episode, he doesn't have like he hasn't cooked up any sort of vaccine or cure, and he's not interested in it either.
Yeah.
They have to
All right.
force him to like write down a particular like molecule. He writes some sort of chemical compound. He like maps it out on a piece of paper, and that's how they mass produce the drug.
Uh,
Is because he knows how to fix what he's done, but he doesn't take it himself. He doesn't want to be
yeah.
saved.
Yeah. All right. Out of like all of these main characters, you like backstory, like episode focus on them. Which one that you prefer? I don't think we got like an episode focus on Douglas, right?
Um, so that's another thing that remember when I was talking about Watanabe's trademarks. That's another one of his trademarks is having a bunch of episodes that are like focus on a particular character and their backstory. You see that in
Yeah.
Bebop,
Yeah.
Shampoo, Dandy. Um,
Yeah.
out of the so we do learn a little bit about Doug and his past when they visit the homeless encampment. And one of the homeless people is like Doug's former professor of biomechanics or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he was somebody who stuck up for Doug um, when he faced discrimination at whatever university he was at. The reason Doug got expelled is because he punched someone who said a black man will never win a Nobel Prize.
Yeah.
Um, learning about uh, learning about that incident in Doug's life is the extent of his backstory, I think.
Yep.
Um, the other characters have get more backstory, I guess. I mean, I suppose that my favorite is episode 8,
Right.
Chris's episode, because she
Christine.
used to
Yep.
be a Russian spy. Like that's the episode that's on the oil tanker in the Arctic Sea.
Hmm.
Um, and apparently that whole incident like makes tensions between uh, Russia and whatever country they were operating out of in that episode. It was like one of the Nordic countries, I think. It makes tensions between those two countries flare up, and
Right.
it's on the news. You never hear anything.
Serbia.
Not Serbia. It was like Sweden or Denmark or something,
Oh, right,
or
right, right, right.
Norway. It was.
Sweden. Yep, yep.
Was it Sweden?
Oh, yep.
It was
Sweden or Norway.
one of
Yep,
those
yep,
countries.
yep. It ring a bell.
Um, I think that was probably my favorite. It had some awesome action scenes. Like, dude, the scenes where Chris was tied up to the chair
Right.
and still managed to escape and beat up the really big Russian dude Sergey
Yep.
was really cool. Like she's tied to the chair, she's in midair, and she kicks him twice in the head while still having her arms behind her back. It's so badass.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
And he got knocked out, but he still, like be able to, come back afterward to fight Exo who killed his teammate. I have no idea why he had to shoot him while Christine was there, while and then get shot by Exos. It just, like, story wise, I know it's pretty to look at, but story wise, it doesn't really go to it's go to all the places that you expect them to be.
I mean, isn't there an immediate threat on Chris's life, and that's why Axel has to shoot the
Yeah, why? But like at first, why didn't he shoot Christine first before shooting uh her yeah, his teammate? I don't recall her name, but yes,
Inga.
it just Inga. Yeah, it just doesn't really make sense. Like he was just like, "You traitor! I gonna kill you!" Boom. Whereas Chris is just, right there.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I kind of know what you're talking about. Um, I think it's because like he and Inga were on the same side. They were like working for the motherland, you know. And Chris was obviously a traitor. You know, she took the opportunity of being pronounced dead at the airport to start a new life. And
Yep.
when Inga, who was previously in a relationship with Chris, it's implied that they were lovers. Um,
Mhm.
when he sees that Inga is going to do the same thing that Chris did and is like choosing to prioritize herself over her country, that's what sets him off, I think.
All right. All right. Good job defending him.
That's what I remember at least. I mean, that was episode 8, so that
Right.
was a month and a half ago at this point, something like that.
Yeah. Right.
Um,
Uh,
I'd
how
say that
do
was
you
probably
feel?
my favorite. I thought Leland's backstory
Right.
episode really sucked.
All right. Wow. I kind of enjoy that.
Oh, really? Where he goes home to his mansion and he talks to his sister, his half
Yeah.
sister,
And
maybe stepsister.
and then he, yeah, and then his half sister just kind of slap him twice before, you know uh agree to before I actually asked him to just go back and uh be the man, be
Head of the
the
family.
director. Yeah, the head of the family. Yes.
Yeah, that's part of why I didn't like it. Was he had to go back home and just listen to his sister deliver a bunch of exposition about their backstory, and then
Yeah.
she was like, "Okay, if I do this for you, if I introduce you to this like exclusive medical group, um, then you have to hold up your end of the bargain and take over the family business." And he just says, "Nope," and still gets what he wants anyway.
No, no, no. And then after on, she make another request for him to come to see him, to stay with her on the Sunday, because this is at the end of the world. I have to. We we
Right.
we would spend some time for each other, and he said, "Nope, maybe not this Sunday, but next Sunday."
Right. He says next Sunday because we're gonna save the world, and there will be another Sunday.
Right.
Um, yeah, but I
Well,
just the him coming back home and talking to his sister, it just seemed very like mechanical. There wasn't
right.
anything really exciting about the presentation of it. There wasn't an oil tanker exploding in the background or like, classy flashbacks to uh, like a pair of like Russian spies who are secretly in love and they're like playing the piano together and there's a curtain kind of obscuring the room that's fluttering in the breeze. You don't get anything cool looking like that. It's just two people talking in a room, and I don't know. I
With
guess I wasn't really
with
down with that.
yeah, with Axel and Douglas just come there just for witnessing.
It was kind of
It's
amusing
great.
that they were so uncomfortable.
Right. Yep. Yep. Yep.
What was Axel's
Uh,
backstory though? Did he get an episode?
I don't think so. No. All we know is just we don't even know why he's in the prison in the first place, right? Did,
Well, he explains early on to Chris when they're driving somewhere together that the reason that he had such a lengthy prison sentence was because he kept breaking out, which would double his prison sentence over and over.
yeah.
But
But
as for why he was locked up in the first place, I don't think we ever learned for sure. We know that
right.
he was like gang affiliated in the past. He confesses
All
that
right.
to
So
Chris as well, much later in the show.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that we're gonna get a second season because there is still the two main characters who didn't have their own episodes.
You think there's going to be another
So
season?
I think so
Really?
because yeah, at the end of that they still like we like to keep Lazarus as a group. Everyone agree,
Right.
and they all kind of like agree. I thought at that point Esso would decline, but he actually kind of agreed to do that as well. So
Yeah, I was surprised by that because if he's in the
mm,
same vein as like a Spike or a Mugen type character
yeah,
from previous Watanabe
mm,
works, there's no way he would say yes. He would be like, "Nope, time
yeah,
for me to hit the road. I'm going to do my own thing."
yeah. All right, what's your take on Elena's backstory, where she go back to the
You know what that
cult,
reminded me of?
from oh my god, Japan Sings,
Yes.
right?
I thought that episode was not good. I just kept having Japan Sinks flashbacks the entire time.
Well, I think Japan Sing they do that in like 2 or 3 episodes, whereas here we only get the one episodes.
Right. Yeah,
So
and
it
it's
even
also
worse.
like it's all about AI as well because the cult is like they take all their instructions from an artificial intelligence,
Right.
and it
Yep.
just I don't know. It really didn't do anything for me. Like Elena,
Yeah.
her biological mother was there, and they hardly interacted, and there wasn't even a sense that she was like that she wanted to talk to her mother or that she was upset that her mother wouldn't acknowledge her or anything. I mean, there was a little bit of that, but it was hard. It was like not character oriented at all. Elena was just kind of there because she had a connection to the cult and could get in.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
That
And
might have been my least favorite episode.
I agree. It just happened too quickly as well. So we got to get there to see like how that call work, all the characters, and then how Elena and Leland try to get more information, and then we learn about uh the festivals or something that they want to do. Basically they try to kill themselves, or they try to at least kill Elena and Leland.
Right.
A- and then they all of that get thrown off, everyone die. All of that happened in like one single episode. It's just too much.
Yeah, it was not good.
No.
It was kind of funny though that it reminded me so strongly of Japan Sinks. It
Right.
kind of made me laugh how similar they were, and how it just reminded me of the experience of being so disappointed by that show, and it just eventually just treating it as like an unintentional comedy. Um,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. All right. I remember we got that guy from Japan Sings. He
Daniel.
got a Daniel. All right. Yep.
Yep.
Oh my god.
Yeah, he was one of the worst anime characters in recent years.
All right. So I think it was safe to say that Lazarus. I don't regret the 13 episode I watched, but out of the three shows, I got it is my least favorite show out of the three.
Mm. I actually disagree.
All right. Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
All right.
I definitely understand why people were disappointed by this show. It does not hold together at all when you think about the larger story.
Mhm.
But there were lots of really excellent individual moments and episodes. And when we first started talking about it, like 30 minutes ago, whatever, and I said I had like kind of prepared myself, braced myself for this outcome. It's
Yep.
because I knew there was a strong possibility that the story was not gonna make ends meet. Um,
Hmm.
but I still wanted to enjoy, the music and the animation and the atmosphere and everything. And I I think I did. Um,
Hmm.
so I mean, the much bigger disappointment for me, not Lazarus, was not Lazarus. It was Mobile Suit Gundam G-Quux.
Oh, right.
Dude,
Yep.
I was pissed watching that show. Um, I mean, maybe I'm
Hmm.
exaggerating a little bit. I don't think I was ever like really angry while watching it, but I was just like shaking my head. Like, what are you doing? You have Tsurumaki, you have Ano, you have Enokido all on staff, and this is what you came up with. It's just they were
Very
just
interesting.
writing like original 0079 fan fiction, basically. In
Hmm.
the end, that's what it came down to. It was
All
so
right.
it was so tied to the original Gundam series. Man.
So interesting because I think from my memory of the first episodes that I watched, I kind of enjoyed it.
Oh, you didn't finish it.
I didn't watch it past the first episodes.
Okay. I mean, yeah, the first episode was good. Um, it's
All
just
right.
it's you're definitely gonna have questions about it if you end up watching the whole thing because the
Right.
longer it goes on, the more knowledge you need of the original series.
I see.
Um,
Alrighty.
not that that's a bad thing in and of itself, but just the way that they went about it, I was like, man, this is
Hmm.
they could have told their own story, but they didn't.
All right. Shall we get to the last show, which is Kowloon, generic romance?
Sure. So this, I'm gonna have such a hard time. I apologize to everyone listening for the amount of like things I'm gonna not gonna remember or things I'm gonna get wrong. Uh, I took extensive notes, watching the show, trying to keep everything straight, trying to figure out all the mysteries, and I don't know if I, I don't know if I managed
Well,
to do that.
wow, this is the mystery show, so it kind of makes sense that we try to unravel some of the mysteries, and some of them we don't get. So let's dive into it, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, we might literally have to dive into it. In the final episode, there is a scene where Reiko, the main character, goes
Right,
underwater
right,
and like talks to her goldfish. Success.
right, right. I don't get that,
Well, at that point,
but
it's just like full simulation. That's what we learn. Spoiler alert. We're gonna talk about the whole series. Kowloon is a
yep,
simulation.
yep,
Um,
yep,
the actual city was the second Kowloon because there was the
yep,
actual historical one that existed in I guess the 80s and 90s,
right,
somewhere in that time period. And then they in this version of the future they built a second Kowloon, but that was also destroyed by the
right,
Hebinuma Corporation because they wanted to cover up. the illegal drug that was sold there.
Yeah,
I think that was
yeah,
the
yeah.
reason for Kowloon's demolishment. Uh, but since it was demolished, they there's just a bunch of like ruined buildings and stuff there. But one of the former residents of the second Kowloon is like so strongly attached to his time there that a giant floating prism in the sky absorbs his memories of the second Kowloon
Hmm.
and creates a simulation of it unbeknownst to him. He's like subconsciously powering it through his memories.
Yeah, I
That's the
think he know that.
overarching premise,
Right.
right?
Yeah, yeah. I think he know that, but he just doesn't really want to leave as well. So
Doesn't he
he
not know
he.
it and someone has to point it out to him like towards the end?
I think he did know that. Uh, yeah. Well, so I think he know all of that, but he decided to go on just because he want to see Kurichai, or he want to be with Kurichai. Both
Kujidai?
both yeah, both version of them. Uh, you know. Uh, yeah. So he just kind of hang in there.
He's just hanging out in his own
Yeah.
simulation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well.
I seem to remember, I mean, my memory of the last two episodes, even though I just recently watched them, I like held off watching them as long as possible so they'd be fresh in my mind. My memory of them, even though I watched them today, is still kind of hazy. I thought that somewhere in those two episodes, like a particular character explained to him that this
It
is
just
it's your subconscious, it's your memory that's creating this thing.
all right. I think that was Tao Gwen who come to see him and try to explain, but he didn't catch on until later on that the word the Kowloon was is stimulation by Hajime because some of the details that he said were inconsistent because he did make a thing for a cat that automatically update when Hajime know about that. So I think that's when we know Hajime is the one who behind that.
Yeah, he also tells him that Xiaohei is
Yeah,
actually a man,
yeah,
not a
yeah.
girl, and that makes the generic version of Xiaohei, who is a girl, disappear
Disappear.
when
Right.
Kudo's like mind when his memory receives that little update, like the patch notes in
Yeah,
a video game.
yeah.
He he gets that update and she disappears from.
Right.
So that's
Yep.
why uh, generic versions disappear when the real version comes into the city. It doesn't happen automatically. It happens when Kudo becomes aware of the fact
Yep.
that the original version is here now. That's why it's so important that
Yep.
his mahjong buddy, Mr. Chen, um,
Hmm.
comes to the city and Kowloon starts playing mahjong with him. The
Yep.
the generic version disappears.
Right.
That happens in like
So,
episode 4 or something, and you only get clarity about it later on.
yeah. And I really love the fact that at first, like in the first one, in the first two episode, I actually thought Miyuki is the one behind this. Like he's the son of the Hebinuma pharmacist, and they have something to do with this, right? But then we get an episode or two focus on him and Tao, and we realized that he also just like another characters on that. He tried to figure out what's going on as well, so he invited, like you said, he invited one of the resident, and to his surprise, the generic version just disappear, and that explains Tao generic version who is a waiter why he disappeared. So we kind of like pieces everything together to reach that, and I think that actually pretty good.
Well,
Enjoy that.
the reason that the generic would have disappeared in the
Yep.
simulation is not because the original version like stepped through the border between the real world and the Kowloon demolition site. It would be because Kudo became aware of his existence, right?
Huh,
Because
right.
it's his memory that controls that stuff. So the when the show frames it as like
But
Miyuki's whole setup where he wants the original version to come in and he wants to see what will happen to the generic version. The show frames it as though it's like instantaneous, like almost magical. But in reality it has to be Kudo's perception and his updated knowledge that would cause the generic to disappear.
well, yes and no, because I don't think he know the appearance of Uptown. Uh, later on in the episodes, until later on in the episode. So um when the generic version of Tao disappear as a waiter, I think he still didn't know by then that the real version of Tao has already appeared in the Tao.
Wouldn't that create some sort of inconsistency though with the way that
So
Zhao Mei's, whatever, Zhao Hei's generic disappears?
so I would just say that so it I think it's like writing a code so that every version that he know the real version that he know when they come to this stimulation would the generic version would disappear, but because Sao he didn't know about the original version, that's why he get past that code until he got updated that code that so he were actually a boy, so that the generic version disappear. Do you get what I mean?
No.
All right.
If
Well,
the way that it works is Kudo like understanding that someone can't be like, I mean that's ultimately why the female or the the girl presenting Zhao He, is it
yeah.
Zhao He or Zhao Mei? Zhao He. The female,
Xiao He,
the
yeah.
the young girl looking Zhao He. The reason she disappears is because Kudo realizes that she's not real.
Right.
So that being the case, any generic to disappear, it would have to be because Kudo realizes that they're not real. Because it's his memory that controls this whole thing.
Right. But the thing is, he didn't know that the real Xiao He, the boy person, has come to the city.
Uh-uh.
Yeah. All right. All right. We might get back to that later on. Let's talk about
Yeah,
some.
I there's so much that I don't that like doesn't make sense to me and that I don't get. Like all the stuff with Miyuki.
Yeah.
It's ultimately
Miyuki.
Kudo
Yeah.
who's
Yeah.
it's this whole thing is a simulation that draws on his memories. So all the
Right.
time spent on like Miyuki wanting to get revenge on his father because his
Yep.
mom like he swore allegiance to the Hebinuma family in order to get treatment for his mom.
Yep.
Um
I don't
and
really get that either. So is that Hajime the Kudo the real son?
no,
I don't
he
think so,
just has
right?
nothing at all to do with Miyuki.
Right. Yep. Yep. Yep.
That whole
All right.
thing,
Go
I
on.
mean, speaking of red herrings, that whole thing was as far as I could tell like a giant red herring.
Yep. Yep.
Um I didn't get that at all. Also, like why did the Hebinuma family even want Miyuki in the first place?
Yeah.
Like
That.
why did they want to adopt him?
All right. So my take was that they have a boy that they want to raise him, and the boy died for some reason, so they need a replacement so that there will be the one who inherit his legacies, Hebinuma pharmacies, and that's why they come to Miyuki.
Yeah, but why him out of all of
Mm,
the men in the world that they could possibly pick?
no idea why.
I
And then
I didn't understand what was like important
no,
about
the
that story or
motivation.
about him as a character. I mean, there was a particular episode that kind of went into his history with Gwen, and like explored their initial like meeting and their romance and stuff. And I thought that all that was pretty cool.
Hmm.
Um, but as for his like larger significance, I didn't really get that.
Yep.
I mean, I know
And then
that he is involved with Yulong, who's the white-haired guy with the
yep,
unconventional looking pupils in his eyes.
yep,
And Yulong is one of the programmers of Generic Terra.
yep.
And Generic Terra was a program that the Hebinuma Corporation was ultimately like funding and using so that they could resurrect the son who had died. And what Miyuki
Right,
wanted to
right,
do
right,
was
right.
get revenge on his adoptive father for letting his biological mother die.
Yep, yep, yep,
Um, so he wanted to like hijack the generic terror program in order to bring back the son, but without his memories, in order to torment his father. It was just like so needlessly complex,
yep,
I thought,
yep,
because
yep,
none
yep,
of that had anything to do with Reiko or Kudo or their relationship,
yep,
or any of the other side characters like Yao Mei or Zhao He. It just seemed
yep.
very like divorced from all that, and it was kind of interesting to follow as it was happening as you're trying to put everything together. But once you get to the end and it's just a bunch of like simulation wankery where you're like going underwater and talking to your goldfish and like going through a door in the sky and sitting in a movie theater and
Ha-
watching someone else's memories be projected up on screen, it I was just like, this isn't really coming
have
together for me.
Have you seen the Truman Show?
Yes, in fact, that was exactly what I was reminded of when they go, like
Right.
when they
Yep.
go up on top of that building and there's the
Yep.
door that's kind of set against the cloudy sky in the background. I was reminded of the
Yep.
Truman Show. I
Yep.
bet the
Yep.
person who wrote this manga also really loves the Truman Show.
I would say so. I would say it might be one of their main inspiration for this one because there are a lot of concept that kind of the same here as
Hmm.
well. All right. There is some irregulars in the name of Yao Mei because she kind of like the real person who's sucked into this Kowloon without her knowledge. So like she doesn't know that the second Kowloon CD has been demolished. She just go there because she feel lost, she feel regret. I think regret is the key, and that she got sucked into this world without her knowing. So yeah, what your take on all of that?
Um, yeah, it's hard for me to make sense of the fact that a particular emotion can act as a key, like to alter your
Yep,
perception so that you can tap into the simulation. Because if the simulation
yep,
is
yep.
powered by Kudo's memories, why does that generic Terra Prism care about anybody else's emotions or memories or feelings?
Hmm. Well,
That doesn't
well,
really
th-
make
this
sense
is
to
the
me. But
yeah, there's a sci-fi element into this. Yes,
yeah, I mean, it's really just supernatural.
right. Yep.
It's beyond just like science or any sort of like any sort of science fiction. It doesn't really. I don't know. I can kind of buy it, I guess. I mean, if you want regret to be one of the themes of your work, you can kind of just say, "Oh, well, you have to feel regret in order to tap into the second Kowloon." And I think
Yep.
that is consistent because Kudo obviously has regrets about
Yep.
Kujirai's death, and
Yep.
Yao Mei has regrets. Not They don't have anything to do with Kowloon, but they're about her relationship with her mother. And
Yep.
even in either episode 12 or 13, one of Kudo's mahjong buddies,
Yep.
the older guy
Yep.
with the glasses, he obviously has regrets because as the simulation is like breaking down, he's able to see his wife.
Right.
So he
Yep.
had regrets about never being able to say goodbye to her or something about their relationship.
Yep.
So that particular detail does make me appreciate the fact that that was at least, consistent. Was
Yep.
was Gwen, I think you were calling him Tao or something.
Yep. Quintile.
Was
Yep.
he What was his regret? Cuz he was a real person
Right.
who could see
Maybe
Kowloon.
maybe because of his relationship with Miyuki.
Yeah, I mean, if it's gonna be anything, it would be that. But
Right.
it just doesn't really. I don't know. The fact that that's not tied to.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it is
Yeah.
tied to Kowloon because Miyuki's whole evil plan, which is so short-sighted to me. Like, okay, I, I'm gonna resurrect the guy who my dad wants to resurrect, but oh, he just won't have his memories. Whoa.
Oh, yep.
Um, the fact that
And then
Miyuki's plan is tied to Kowloon might somehow make Gwen feel regret about the city. Dude, I don't know. I'm just reaching so hard trying trying to make all this make sense.
man, let's go with that because I thought that like outside of regret there is a sense of nostalgia that they talk a lot in the especially in the first few episodes
Yeah.
where they said about the Kowloon and the scent they get that might factor in there, but it doesn't really have anything to do with Yao Mei. It nostalgia is a factor, so
Yeah. I think there's a particular point in Yao Mei's investigation of Kowloon where she kind of pieces that together. Like, I'm not nostalgic for it, so why can I see it?
right.
Um,
and,
and her whole
and then
thing where
she
she leaves and goes to Hong Kong and has like that online chat room experience with Yulong, who
yeah.
also slips the candy into her bag that will restore her memories or like undo the brainwashing of the simulated Kowloon food, which just makes
Yep.
absolutely no sense. Like
Yep.
that's
Yep.
not
Well,
real food, bro. That's nothing. It's like ones and zeros.
yep. And then Gwent, he got away with it because he ordered pizza from the outside, and I think
Right.
he's kind of order like a lot of stuff that he from the outside that he just eat, so he doesn't really eat in here in Kowloon. All
You
right,
yeah, you
that
there are
work.
several scenes where you see him with like a bag full of energy bars.
Yep. Yep.
He's
Yep. Yep.
always
Yep.
eating
Yep.
those because he doesn't want to eat the not like the non-existent, impossible to brainwash you, digital simulated, not real food. Like I can't stress enough how little sense that makes.
And and that doesn't really take into account the water. Like he need to drink some stuff, right? Wow.
Yeah, I didn't think about like the hydration. How does Yao Mei even survive in Kowloon?
Yummy.
Yeah,
Well,
Reiko's friend, Yao Mei. How does she
well,
survive?
she eat on this food and
But it's not real. It's not real. You need matter. Like you need protein, carbohydrates, and fat. Where's she getting all that stuff from?
well, even Hajime, right?
Who?
Kudo, sorry,
Oh,
Kudo.
yeah. How does he survive? I mean, you always see him smoking cigarettes. Maybe those are like special, nutritious
he,
cigarettes.
he did eat a lot in Kowloon, so
Hmm.
okay. Anyway,
He was just well for him specifically. He was. I don't understand how he like survived, but putting that aside, he was kind of like going along with the simulation at the point where he
right,
realized, or maybe he knew all along, that he was
yeah,
the one who was like sustaining the. Well, he
yeah,
whether or not he knew that it was his memories and his brain that were powering it, he must have caught
mm,
on really early that it was like some sort of simulation or dream or whatever.
right,
So I
right,
think he willingly eats the food because
yeah.
he just wants to continue living there.
But yeah, but how does he survive? Because it's
Yeah,
it's not real food.
it that's
But well,
that's what I'm saying.
yeah. All right. Uh, technical stuff aside. Um, all right. There is some elements of the mystery that I think really interested me, but I just feel that the show doesn't really handle that very well. So I'm thinking of the talisman. So Reiko uh had been following B's class, so that she just kind of like tear up all the talisman to see what what they say
Right.
in the other side, and some of them just say no forbidden. So like
Yeah, they give like
an error
an
code.
error message like 403, like when you try to go to a
Yeah,
website that doesn't exist or you can't access.
that's so interesting. And then later on, we just find out that it's Hajime's subconscious message to them, to her, not to go there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I just feel that like it's just a really good piece of like a mystery that could be explored much further than just it's actually Hajime way of saying don't go there, don't go forward, turn back,
Well, I mean, what else could it possibly
error
be
message.
if the
Oh my
whole
god.
simulated Kowloon is just his is based on like
Yeah.
his memories and his thoughts and everything?
Right. Right. Right.
I don't know if there's any other way to explain what's on the back of those talismans and stuff. There are a
Yeah.
bunch of other kind of discoveries that are like that. For example, there's a scene I think in a bookstore between maybe Reiko and Yao Mei where she's like, "Oh,
Yep.
I read this book and I really wanted to read the second one." So they go to the
Right.
bookstore and try to get, or maybe she's read the second one but hasn't read the original. One of those. Anyway, she tries to get a book from the bookstore and like when she opens it up, there's a bunch of just nonsense in the book,
Right. Right. Right.
like
Right.
just filler text basically that was generated by generic Terra because Kudo didn't have any memory of what was in that book, so it couldn't fill it with like authentic text. It had to just generate some
Huh.
stuff.
That that's very interesting because Kudo, I think he know about the event of the second book because he keep telling Reiko or even Kurichai B before that. You want me to spoil?
Yeah, he does
And
do that, doesn't it? And they even reference that
yep,
book during their conversation in the real world at like the end of episode 13, don't they?
right, yep,
When she's
yep,
waiting for Yao Mei at that restaurant, she's sitting outside at a table and she has that
yep,
book with
yep,
her
yep,
and Kudo comes and he's like, "Hey, it's been 2 years, but I'm back."
yep. All
Yeah.
right,
Well, I'm if I went back to that episode and like studied it, I I
yep,
I'm willing to believe that it would be consistent. Like whatever
right,
book it is that she pulls out must be one that Kudo hasn't read in that series,
right.
I
Yep, yep,
think.
yep.
Cuz at that point, well, I don't know.
That makes sense.
Maybe it is an inconsistency, but I choose to believe that it makes sense.
Right. Well, we didn't really talk to the elephant in the room that we talked we mentioned a little bit before the postcard, and mm, now I think I want to bring that up.
What's that?
How can Kurichai Reiko can appear in the real life if she is a stimulation
Yeah.
from Hajime imagination of
Yeah.
the real one who already died?
Yeah, we were talking about
How
that before, and it doesn't make a lot of sense, but I actually just came up with a theory just now.
right? Tell me.
I mean, it doesn't really
Enlighten us
explain it in terms of the, I don't know, like the scientific process behind it or whatever. But if you
because of the
remember,
goldfish.
it was the goal of generic Terra in the first place by the Hebinuma Corporation to bring back from the dead um, his
Yep, yep,
the
yep.
company boss's son who had passed away.
Right.
So Reiko must be Kujirai B brought back from the dead,
Hmm.
but with like a different personality.
Right.
Because
Hmm.
as I mean, in the last couple of episodes where it's revealed that everything's a simulation and all that, and it kind of gets a little bit psychological, Kudo
Yep.
confesses to himself in that scene where he walks through the door and it ends up being a
Hmm.
door to his apartment or to Reiko's apartment, I guess, Kujirai's apartment,
Hmm.
and he
Mm-hmm.
encounters another version of himself. He says, "I never really knew her." That's
Right.
why he's like that's why this whole show exists is because she committed suicide. I think. Um,
Mm-hmm.
or she died at the very least. I'm pretty sure she committed suicide, and that's why he's so upset that she died, is because he never knew her at all. Like, if she could
Mm-hmm.
do something like that, how could he not have caught on if he claimed to love her?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so he says to himself in that scene, I never really knew her. So when the simulation was created, he couldn't have reproduced Kujidai because he was so convinced that he didn't understand her.
Yep.
So when
Yep.
Kujidai was brought back as a generic, it was, she had like the same mole and everything, but she was her own
Right.
person. Like the wrinkles, there's a scene early on in an early episode where she goes to like the Hebinuma clinic or whatever. They're doing free
Mm-hmm.
skincare stuff.
Right.
And
Right.
the
Right. Yep.
person who examines her says, these wrinkles like were not made over time. These wrinkles are like baked into your DNA, basically. They're a part of who you are, and they always have been. So that means that when Kudo simulated this entire Kowloon, he when he was creating the new Kujidai, which he couldn't do because he didn't really know her, he created
Mm-hmm.
something real using whatever technology exists in generic Terra to create a real person.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was the whole goal of the Hebinuma boss.
Hmm.
So somehow
All right.
Kudo tapped into that potential of generic Terra and made a real person, which would be Reiko.
Yep. All right.
So she was always real, I guess.
Right.
That's what I
Yeah.
just came
That.
up with on the fly. I don't know if that
All
makes
right.
sense.
That that make the fact that Kudo, like have sex with her more authentic.
Oh yeah.
Well.
Yeah,
Oh
dude,
wow.
that is pretty weird. Like if people are to be intimate with one another, what
Yeah.
exactly is happening there? If
Yeah. So it ultimately also boiled down to the main relationship with Kudo and Kurichai, both version of them. The way that he's still hanging on the one that he loved but now had passed away, and to the real one where she obviously had affection for him, and he said in many times that it's not because she is a projection of the real Kurijai, but she does have a real feeling for him, and that his ability to just move on, because now the real version is here, another version is here, and they love you. Or that, and it's take him to 2 years after the main event in order to to bring himself to Reiko.
yeah, I wasn't exactly sure why the detail about it taking 2 years was put in. I guess it was because like he was still dealing with his regrets.
Yeah,
It
I think
shows
so
that
as
he
well.
was like really conflicted.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing was all for his mind. Because he wanted to create a perfect summer.
Right.
It all right. One more things, because the stimulation in Kowloon, it depict one big summer day. So like everyone just experience like just a hottest day, just a summer day
It's not
every
one day
times.
that repeats. It's like 2 months, I think.
All right, so it when it reached to the day that Kurichai be commit suicide, it all reverse back to the 2 months, right?
Yeah.
Because I think they mentioned that Hajime had to live through this a lot of times.
Yeah, and I mean you even see it happen in I can probably find it in my notes here.
Really?
Yeah,
Right,
at the end of episode 8 on I think that's the same episode where the two of them have sex for the first time.
right,
Yeah, and when Reiko is in bed with I don't know if it's when she's still in bed with him or after he's left, but you see
right.
like the screen of her phone and you see the date is July 1st, but the day before that was August 31st. So
Oh, I see.
it appears as though she's gone. We don't understand what that means exactly at that point, but
Yep,
it appears as though
yep.
she's gone back in time 2 months.
Right. No, I didn't get that. Right. That makes sense. And she didn't realize herself, right? Mm, no one would except for
I
Hachime.
not at that time. I think she
Right,
figured it out eventually. Like some of the later episodes of the show are really focused on like Reiko and Yao Mei and Yulong's investigation of Kowloon,
right,
and they start to piece together what's happening. And I don't remember
right.
exactly which discoveries they make and which realizations they have at which points. That's kind of
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of all
Yep,
blurred
yep.
together in my mind. And the show also kind of blurs it together because there are multiple like kind of recap segments
Right.
built into some of these episodes. For example, the like the mission briefing that Xiaohei gives to Miyuki's father, because it's revealed that Xiaohei is not just working for Yulong, but he's actually working for Miyuki's dad. When he gives him that report, he kind of recaps a lot of what we as the audience have learned about Kowloon being a simulation. And there's
Yep, yep, yep.
another very similar scene. Well, I mean, I guess the chat room conversation between Yao Mei and Yulong in Hong Kong in the real world, that also
Mm-hmm.
kind of functions as um, like a catch up scene for the audience to be like, oh, okay, so here's what we've learned so far, and this is what all the characters know so far.
Right.
Oh, in that scene too, I think Yulong tells her it's like an eternal summer. It's always summer in Kowloon.
Yep, 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 yep.
And then we see in that same episode, we see the screen of Reiko's phone go back in time.
Right. Hmm. I see. All right. I think for all the mysteries, I really love the review when we see it. So like when when Tao he went back to Kowloon, and we see he come back to like a normal looking Kowloon, but then it's pushed back to the driver who say that, like it's look like a mess now, who gonna live in there, and we see all the ruins.
Right. Yeah, that was a
I
very
think
cool
it's like,
reveal.
yeah, 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 I love that. So yeah, a lot of mysteries to go a lot of way. I think most of them, like 8 out of 10, did its job. So like it wrapped up neatly. Some of the tickling details that we are not sure about, but I think at the end of the day, I really like the mysteries and the romance in this Kowloon. I love the show where it's depict a place with like full of personalities, and Kowloon is one of these places. So even though it's fake, it's just a stimulation. But well, so I really enjoyed the show. How about you, Per?
I it honestly it lost me.
Right. Yeah.
Like
I don't blame you.
the longer that it went on and the more that it went into its mystery and the whole time loop and simulation and brainwashing food and all that stuff, like the more that it went into that and kind of got away from the relationship between Kuro and Reiko,
Yep.
I started to get less and less interested, and I was just watching it to see how it would explain itself, and that's not really a good
Right.
feeling.
Yep. Mm.
Um, there were things I liked about it. I mean, even here's a I guess a theme from a recent episode that I kind of liked. In episode 9,
Mm.
there was a little bit of detail put into Reiko and Kudo's relationship because they had just
Mm-hmm.
slept together, and they were,
Right.
even though Kudo was like maintaining his distance from her, they were still kind of entering into a relationship with each other. Kudo has a
Yep.
memory, I think, at the start of that episode, number 9, about
Right.
making French
Mm-hmm.
toast with Kujidai B,
Right.
where she
Yep.
would use like the sugar sticks from a local coffee place in order to coat the top of the bread with sugar before,
Mm-hmm.
you know, baking it or whatever. In order,
Right.
so the French toast would have like a really kind of crunchy sweetness to it. So we get that memory of his of Kujidai B, and later on when Reiko doesn't have that same memory, even though she's based on his memory of Kujidai B,
Mm.
that that like upsets him. That make he asks to leave. He just like leaves
Yep.
her apartment, when he realizes that she doesn't have that memory, that she doesn't share that memory with him.
Yeah.
Um, I thought that was interesting. Um,
That
the
was really interesting.
the
Yeah.
motifs
Go on.
about like sunflowers and watermelon and goldfish. They say that a goldfish loses its memory of a trip around the fishbowl in like 15 seconds or something.
Hmm.
Obviously, this show has a lot to do with memory. So
Yeah.
I don't know, like using symbols like that in order to add some resonance to the characters' relationships and to make you question like what's really happening and all that. That was kind of interesting. Um,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
just ended up getting less and less involved in the show as it went on.
Yeah, that scene in particular is interesting in the way that Kurichabi, when she did that, she said it was a secret recipe from her grandma or her mom.
Her mother, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and if if our main character Kurichai Reiko is the same person, she would have the same memory, but she doesn't. So she not only doesn't share the memory that Hachi may have, she doesn't really share the memory that the real Kurichai has either. So I think that's why it kind of tick Kudo off, and he been questioning like who he really love in that sense. Is it
Yeah. I just
so,
wish there was more attention paid to their relationship, I think. Like
mm,
less trying to Scooby Doo the mystery and more, I don't know,
mm,
more about the two of them, I guess.
right, right. Yep.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
true. She does say that that was her mother's. We never really learn the reason why she commits
No,
suicide. And I mean
no.
it's intentionally excluded because the you can never really know somebody, that whole idea. Um,
Yeah,
it's in keeping with that idea not to tell us why she killed herself or the exact manner of her death. We know that she was, you know, getting drugs from the northern territory of Kowloon, and that was part of the reason why it had to be
right.
demolished and all that.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
it. You don't really know the real motivation as well. I
yeah,
I remember her little talk with the lady, but that itself doesn't really reveal much.
right. You're talking about in episode 13, right?
Right.
Yeah, and we had seen that woman before, hadn't we?
Yeah. So at one point, uh instead of Kudo, because who Kudo normally handle that side of area, the real Kurichai B came to that area to fix some things, and that's where she came in the contact with that woman, and then I think that's where she know where to get the drug forms,
Yeah, but
and
who
that's
is
I
that
think that
woman? Like, what significance does she hold?
she she's the one who been selling drug, that kind of drug to the uh to the people who live there, and she
She's like the
kind of
drug
like one.
lord.
Yeah, I think so, yes.
Okay,
So she's the one who if you knock on the knock on the door, she gonna say she gonna the one who gives you the drug if you
okay,
put the money in.
right, right,
So yeah.
okay. I kind of wish that I don't know, the show needed to go a little. Well, the show went into the whole Miyuki thing because it had to lay the groundwork for Kowloon being a simulation. Like it had to explain
Hmm.
there's a giant prism in the sky and it's like creating this simulation by using the memories of one of the people who used to live there. So it
Right.
has to go into that a little bit in the way that it decided to tell that story, so it had to spend some time uh, I don't know, like laying the groundwork for that or justifying that. But I kind of wish that it was more like I kind of wish that every episode began with one of Kudo's memories of Kujidai B, and then as the episode went on, like that memory of his would be contrasted
Mm,
with his present relationship with Reiko, and it was more, I don't know, like centered around them and
they
less like
yeah.
put the pieces, like less of a jigsaw puzzle, put the pieces together
I
sort of thing.
Yeah, I would say they did that for a good chunks of this episode in the middle. So I could recall like two or three episodes that started like that with
Yeah,
his memory of the previous one versus when it get to the current situation now, just for you to see the difference between uh how Reiko and Kurichai B are. So I think they do a good job of that.
I mean yeah, I like the French toast thing, for example, that we were
Right.
talking about. That's one example. But I just wish they were more consistent. I guess wish they really centered the show around that completely.
Yeah. I think they mentioned about the goldfish as well, and the second book because Kurichai B doesn't want to read the second one, but Reiko she offers, I have to get the second book. So
Right.
yeah, that
Yeah, there is some of that.
yeah, and I remember that the first time that Kudo go into that real Kurichai room, see, he also mentioned that there is no plushie or no stuff anymore in there. But when he get into Reiko later on in that episode, we see a stuffed animal in
Right.
there.
Yeah, that was probably one of the early episodes.
Yep, 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 yep. So yes.
Yep.
All right, good stuff for me. I enjoy it.
All right. Well, we'll leave it there then, on a positive note.
Right. Yeah.
Um, any other
All right.
shows that
Is
you
that
watched this season that you want to shout out before we
yeah?
sign off?
Yeah, I was about to ask you the same thing. I didn't watch anything beyond the three shows that we watched.
Okay.
I watched a bit few more of the second season of Google Loser Ranger.
Oh,
Kind of enjoy it so far. Soshimi series, a bit few more episodes as well. Kind of enjoying it so far as well. So, um,
kind of.
yeah, I kind of yeah,
That show was almost in your top 10 last year.
almost yeah.
Shoshimin series.
Uh, actually is a must watch. So I will wait. I will definitely gonna finish it before the end of the year. And one of the other show that I really like it the first episodes, and I want to watch more is the one from Sharp, a ninja and the assassin under one roof.
Right. Yeah, I'll probably end up checking that out. I
Yep.
I can't really see myself watching the whole thing, but maybe I will.
Right. How about you? I think you've been keeping tab with some of the show for the side, right?
Yeah, I have, but I already spent some time complaining about G-Quux, so
Right.
I'll just leave it there. Um,
All right.
yeah, I mean we're about to hit 2 hours on this episode, so
Yep. Yep.
I don't want to push
All
us
right,
past that mark.
guys. Yeah, we're gonna be back in about 2 weeks for the new seasons. So, my God,
I
like
know.
every time it's just come and go very quick.
I mean, this season was really different for me because I was watching stuff as it aired.
Right.
The experience of it was just so, like Kowloon generic romance, for example. Well,
It's
it just
right.
felt different. Watching everything just felt different than normal. Um,
All right. It's the exact opposite for me, where normally I would follow some of the show week by week, but this time I just watch it in one batch. So
we just traded
yeah,
places,
different experience for me as well. Yep,
but it is going to be
you're
the
right.
same experience in 2 weeks, as Mario said. We're going to do first impressions as we always do. We've never missed a
Yep,
batch, not in
yep,
what 8 years or so.
yep. All right.
And we're not
Yep.
about to break that streak. So summer 2025 first impressions coming up very soon.
All right. So we'll see you in 2 weeks
See you then.
and more. Right. Bye for now.
Bye bye.